Hi everyone. All right. So, how's your week? Oh, how's your Wednesday? Sorry, naka-weekend pa rin ako na mood eh. Am I on? Okay. So, I hope everybody's doing great in a Wednesday and today it's amazing na meron tayong expert that will talk about a very important topic. So today we will have Dominic, Doc, as most people call him. Ligot is an entrepreneur and consultant with a background in banking and fintech. He's a founder of data analytics firm Kyrolytics. I hope I said that right. Before founding Kyrolytics in 2016, he was the head of risk analytics at ANZ after heading consumer credit and analytics at HSBC and was a co-founder of P2P Lender Uploan. Ayun. So if you have questions later on, make sure that you write it down in our Q&A box. And of course, I know na marami tayong question mamaya para kay Doc. So um, let's have Doc Libot on the screen now.
Hi, everyone. Good evening or good morning, depending on where you are in the world. Thanks for having me. Sige. Well, I'm here to give a workshop on data, but I thought I'd share a little bit about myself as well. So, in terms of my background, yeah, it is true that I first worked in banking and then later IT, but nowadays I'm actually in the social impact sector. So my company, actually, it's Cyrolytics. Uh, when we started it, we were thinking of bringing data analytics to small and medium enterprises. But now we've actually made a pivot as of 2019. We're working completely in the social impact sector now. In fact, I think Gab Billones is in the audience. And my colleague Carlos Nazareno is also in the audience. We got our first shot at social impact in a hackathon, no, called Break the Fake. And actually, if we'll have time later, I'll also share what we did in that hackathon, which would be of interest to everyone. So social impact spans many things. The easiest peg is the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So there are 17 of those goals. So any of those goals are actually social impact goals. Most of our work nowadays centers around, I would say, probably maybe 4 or 5 areas. One is public health. So we're quite active in COVID-19, monitoring the pandemic, creating tools to help LGUs respond to it. Human rights is another area. So we're working closely with the Asia Foundation and civic groups in terms of looking at human rights issues and restrictions, especially during a pandemic. Disinformation, right, which I think is going to be of great interest to everyone here, is another area where we're quite active in, starting with our work in Break the Fake. But nowadays, we're also looking at how the COVID-19 pandemic has also created an infodemic, and that will be interesting. No? So watch that space. We're doing a lot of work in that. Um, Finally, we're also looking at areas like food security. So very recently, we were working with the Mindanao Development Authority because everyone is too focused on the pandemic and not realizing that there are other issues that the pandemic created. For example, because of all the quarantines and the restrictions, the movement of food hasn't been that smooth, and that's caused issues down south. And then most recently, in the areas of disaster response, like a very big issue that people realized was media and relief crews couldn't get to Cagayan and Isabela, not just because of the floods, but because of quarantine. So that's kind of things that you don't know until you realize it. No? Those are kind of the areas I work in right now. No? So the stuff I'll be sharing with you today has to do with the work I do in disinformation. Well, I don't create disinformation. We try to fight it. But in a way, you want to think like the bad guys, no? For you guys to kind of watch them. May I get permission to share my screen so I can show some stuff? Yeah, give me a sec. Okay. So maybe my preamble will be before we get into it is one of the things that I'm quite passionate about is data ethics, and it's actually a group that we formed almost a year ago. We're about to hit our first anniversary, in terms of the movement. The idea was it's already the fourth industrial revolution, and a lot of things we do create data. So a lot of the tools we'll be discussing is born out of that work. But really, we're watching the data ethics space quite closely. Everyone is, for example, focused on data privacy and security, but actually that's the tip of the iceberg. It's actually after you've crossed the privacy and the security realm where a lot of other things happen. On the right side of this spectrum, everything from digital ownership and control, misinformation and disinformation, and then kind of at the highest levels, because I work a lot with data scientists and data engineers. The issue of data discrimination, AI discrimination, for example, facial recognition, discriminating against ethnicities and gender, and this notion of algorithmic justice, or the idea that a big part of our lives is now being decided by algorithms. For example, on social media, what you see, if you're not careful, is decided by an algorithm, and we're being perpetually locked into echo chambers, no, of our own design. And then on the left hand side of the spectrum, basic issues like data quality. We've seen this I guess, in the pandemic. The state of the data, for example, coming from DOH, has never gotten better, actually. And researchers struggle with this because if you don't have good quality data, how can you manage things? And then at the lowest end is what we call data poverty. Data poverty is kind of a philosophical concept. It's the idea that even if you wanted to use data, you can't get it. Either it's locked up, or it's not in a format that you can use, or it's really just not there. And I think that's becoming I would say, a big issue. So a lot of what we will discuss today has also to do with reducing data poverty. And one of the easiest ways to reduce it is just getting knowledge of where to get data and information. What are the tools now? But in a nutshell, data can hurt you, and data is unreliable. So that's kind of the thing that we're passionate about in data ethics. We've been recording podcasts since March, since the quarantines hit, and we've discussed a lot of things, not just related to the pandemic, but more recently things that have to do with everyday life. We're also tackling topics like deepfakes, for example, and discrimination online, and how for some reason, and this can be a totally different session altogether. For some reason, social movements seem to evaporate on social media very quickly. It's not like maybe 10, 15 years ago, when people say you're going to go out and protest and rally, it actually does happen. Nowadays, people are content to just share a hashtag, and then in 24 hours it's gone. That's actually a phenomena that deserves further analysis. So right now, if in terms of the legal landscape, we only have a few laws: data privacy, anti-cybercrime acts, for example. Maybe you can add there the Freedom of Information Act and the Intellectual Property Code. So very, very few laws exist. And I think it's also I would say, a fallacy to rely on the law to protect us, because laws are generally reactive, no? And what we want is a more proactive stance, hence the ethics, no? That we're passionate about. So anyway, that's kind of the preamble. So what we're going to discuss today, I'm just going to play with stuff on the screen, and then if you have any questions, feel free to drop a message or something on the chat, no, so we can try to tackle it. This is not a comprehensive list of things. It's more of, if I was looking to fight disinformation, beyond being a keyboard warrior, as they call it, it's nice to have some tools in your arsenal. Some of these tools might actually be familiar to some of you already. So we'll look at first doing a who is search and why is that important. Um, then doing a reverse image search. It's another skill because nowadays there's a lot of disinformation that comes in the form of pictures. So it's always good to find a way to look for a particular image, if it makes sense. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the Facebook ad library. It's actually an open tool where you can check what pages advertise online. And since a lot of advertisements are political nowadays, it's good to understand who's posting it and why. Uh, then maybe the more data intensive parts will be looking at the actual mentions. So in other words, extracting data from social media. We'll look at Twitter, for example, and see what we can do with it. Looking at word clouds. And then the last part would probably be the hairiest part. I'll try to keep it as light as possible. It's something that will take more than 2 hours to discuss, no? But understanding networks. And then if we have time at the end, I have a couple of case studies. The work we did in troglodyte and a more recent one related to monitoring hashtags, no? Okay, so first up, domain tools, no? Why is this important? Well, nowadays, there's a lot of disinformation that happens through websites, and one of the easiest, ways to double check if a website is legit, or if people are, nefarious people are behind it, would be to look at, do a who is lookup. A who is lookup is basically, if you're familiar with how the web works, when you register a domain, it goes into registrars. No, there are many registrars. GoDaddy, WordPress, Namecheap, and they all register so that people don't use the same domain name into a centralized registry. And the who is services, there are many. This whoisdomaintools.com is just one of many. Some of them are paid, some of them are free. So this one will use the free version. But if you want to get more information, you can use you can sign up. It's a small fee, especially if you're going to do this like semi-professionally. It's worth the expense. And what it allows you to do is, in a way, look at websites, no, and who are the bad guys, no. So you can follow along with me. First is, it's nice to get a sample of fake news websites. And the good thing is, courtesy of someone in the audience, my colleague Carlos Nazareno, has actually started to compile lists of fake news websites on Wikipedia. No? So Naz, as I call him, he's an active Wikipedia editor. So he watches, what happens on Wikipedia a lot. And one of the best resources that that exists on fake news. So it's interesting, no? And Naz, correct me if I'm wrong. No? First, there was a general article about fake news websites globally, and then and then somebody posted a list of fake news websites globally, and then Naz and his group started uploading, lists coming from the Philippines. Until later, the total list of fake news websites in the Philippines actually exceeded the global total. Whether that's comprehensive or not, that depends, no. But such that now there's a separate article about fake news in the Philippines. Anyway, so you can search for this on Wikipedia, and there's a lot of lists here. Most of the websites are actually down already, but the who is record actually still exists, no? And that's interesting. We'll use an easy one. This was I don't know if you heard about this. No? There was a spoof website called gma-tv.com. And they designed it to look exactly like GMA. I'm not going to go to that website anymore. A, it's probably down, and B, it's probably loaded with malware. But I think this is a good, example of how we can use the who is, utility. So who is domaintools.com. And then all you need to do is either put a domain or an IP address. And sometimes this is what makes it interesting. No? So although IP address may or may not be that reliable because there are shared domains or shared server space rather. So there are many websites that might share the same IP address. But, occasionally you do find an interesting pattern. So let's find gma-tv.com as a example. I'm just gonna do this for the entire hour. Puro mga tinkering around. No? So here, this is the whois record for gmatv.com. In most cases, the name of the owner will probably be private, but occasionally someone makes a mistake and you can find out who they are. No? Now, the nice thing about this is you have this thing called reverse lookup or reverse IP lookup. So, for example, it says here the IP address of this website is 155.159.159.33.25. No? And there are 2 other sites hosted on this server. So I think this is a lucky shot. Usually you'll have like 100 other websites on this server, 200 websites on this server. And you can see here, the website actually changed IP addresses 99 times over the past 15 years. And that's another potential red flag. No? That means whoever's operating this, they jump around a lot, maybe to evade detection. So if you have a look at this reverse IP, so it says here, these other websites are also hosted there. No? So Melody, chucksblog.com, warehouse number 1 restaurant.com, et cetera, et cetera. And then you can continue, viewing the whois records of these sites and, you start following the chain. No? So later when we talk about, wala na to si Melody Chuck's blog, it's already for sale. No? So it's already closed. Pero warehouse number 1 is still around, no? Et cetera, et cetera. And the point of doing this is, in a way, you're gathering a digital trail. In fact, what we did in the troglodyte project, which I'll show later, is basically building a network of all of these reverse lookups. There are paid services for that, which I think is worth the investment if you're really looking to investigate. And what we found in that kind of that exercise is there are cases when Paolo said, galing nito, yes, no? Remember, with great power comes great responsibility. No? Don't use it for evil. Pero anyway, going back, we found one network of 90 websites connected together. And some of the websites were legit, and some of the websites were nefarious, to say the least. Sometimes that happens, because even fake news websites, are also run by digital marketers who might have other clients. No? So that's also an interesting perspective. If you're going to hire a digital marketer to manage your website, your domain, make sure they're not running fake news websites of their own, no? Or you might get implicated as a result. No? Okay, so whois is there? I won't dwell too much on this, but feel free to poke around. Let's go for something more interesting. No? So where were we? Okay, next. Let's talk about reverse image search. So this was a rather, I don't know if you remember this, a rather popular, and by the way, I'm not being partisan here, no? Just incidentally, a DDS post about, the build program, and apparently Duterte or the president was already inspecting the early stages of, what would have been the Philippine subway. And well, if you're sharp-eyed and if you know graphic, if you're into digital and photography, you would know that the lights and the shadows don't line up, no, in the image. Pero that was what, triggered some people now. Is this thing a doctored post or a doctored site? And what can we do with it? No? Now, there are many reverse lookup sites, but the most popular one is for me, tinai.com and Google Images. No? And actually, this particular example was already documented. If you go here to factcheck.afp.com, no, these photos do not all show subway project in the Philippines. So what was actually revealed to be the truth later is this was a complete falsehood. No? So let me just show you that article, because some sharp-eyed. So this is that website. No. So do these photos show a Philippine subway project? And the answer is no. And how they did it was they did a reverse lookup. No. So how do you do a reverse lookup? So for example, I'll go to the site that ganito na lang. Why don't I copy the Duterte image now? So give me a second. I'm gonna screenshot this thing, and you don't have to have the actual link. You can just capture the image as is, control print screen, or do the snipping tool. Okay, so I've got, give me a second, this one. So I made So I took a snip of that image, and then I'm going to go to tineye.com. No? tineye.com. Here we go. And I'm going to upload si Duterte. No? So I saved it here. Here, Duterte subway. Yan. And the way this works is, it actually uses machine learning to look at very similar images. So number one, it shows you whether the same image actually appears in other websites. So apparently marami. These are probably the articles no, that talked about it. And then near the end, there you go. So you see here another version of the image, but without you know who in the middle of it. No? So parang ganyan, no? Driverless trains, West Central. So anong nangyari dyan? No? According to NAS, there's a third reverse image search service, Yandex. So Yandex is a search engine. I love it. Yan, Glasgow subway. No? Except. So, saan ba siya? Ay, nawala na. No? Or we can use Google. You can go with images.google.com, I think. And then you see this camera, search by image. You can upload the image. So I will upload the image now. Balik tayo kay Duterte. So ganun din yung principle nito, no? You are, no? So there are similar images. So sometimes it's not the exact image. So actually these tools were created for creative purposes. Remember, if you're trying to fill up a website, for example, and you need a similar image to something, ganun yung provenance nitong tool na to. But what it ended up becoming, so here's another, that particular, so these are automated trains, no, in Europe, is actually help identify whether a particular image was, fake or not, no. So I'll dwell more on the article, no. Teka, let me go back to that article. So ito yung mga ibang images, no, that were found on the post, and the links are already here, no. Let's go down. Like, we know this already. This is Glasgow. What about this? Totoo ba yan? So a reverse image search for the third photo found it was published in a photo gallery published here, no. So if we go there, so hindi siya Philippines. It's actually another project in another country, so on and so forth, no. Ito rin, no? I think this was New York, in the New York Times, no. Development of the Second Avenue subway in New York in 2010. So sometimes you want to appreciate the effort that went into, or actually you shouldn't appreciate it. Sa totoo lang, no. It's actually creativity being used for nefarious means, no. But if you're doing fact checking or disinformation investigation, you want to have a way of validating whether a claim is true or not. And especially nowadays, if you review the literature in digital marketing, posts that have a video or an image actually get high engagement, no? Ito si Nas put a link here, no, sa Yandex. Sometimes you can just look at the URL. So let's right click this, copy image address, and then I think you can paste the URL here. Oops, but puro babae, Nas. Okay, let's go back to Google. Images, google.com. Okay, wait. Copy image address. Maybe I need to crop it. Balikan natin to. Click on the camera icon, images. Sige, gawin natin si Duterte ulit. Yeah. Of course, sending an image to Russia is probably the question you want to ask, no? If you want to keep doing that, no? Okay, so that's reverse image search. Let's go back to our deck, no? And marami nahuhuli dito, no? Lalo na where people who are making a false claim. I wasn't able to find a more recent version, but there was actually the a post recently. I think it was within 2020. Somebody posted that there's this big nautical highway that was already being completed somewhere in Luzon, I think, or Visayas. And then somebody did the reverse image search. And no, it wasn't even a highway within the Philippines. No, it was a highway somewhere else. And that's one of the best ways to debunk it, is to show that, hey, look, we did a reverse image search on this, and it's actually something else. No? And there'll be more of this as we go along. No? Lalo na in the age of deep fakes, where it's now possible to seamlessly digitally alter video. It's going to be harder and harder for normal people to tell the difference between something legit and something fake. Okay, so talked about Tinay, talked about Google Images. Okay, Facebook ad library. I think you'll find this easy. So the concept here is you want to start tracking whether a particular page, number one, is running a lot of ads, and number two, what kind of ads are they running. No? So you can go to facebook.ads/library. It's an open tool for everyone. And the reason why Facebook put this out is leading up to the US elections, and then incidentally, it helps us as well. There's already a lot of political advertisements, which according to Facebook, they will not censor at that time. And then ngayon, they're getting a lot of backlash. So the concept now is, can we monitor the ads that pages are doing? And then this is also related to a more recent phenomena where you have political campaigners or politicians taking over pages and then renaming them. No? So this is also another tool you can use to detect that. My favorite one is Bongo. No? Only because he does a lot of ads now, at least. No? So if you go for Bongo's page, it says it was created in Feb 26, 2018. Page name changed 2 times, and you can go to Facebook, the actual the link of Bongo's page, to check. No, so yung @Bongo page, to check what were the previous names of that page. But the interesting part is you see what ads they've been running. No, so pretty much since the start of the year, they've been running a lot of ads. And the nice thing about looking at the ads is you can start comparing. No, in marketing, one tool used in research is called A/B testing, where you test different types of content, you test different types of images. Actually, that's what this page is for, to look at A/B tests. But at the same time, you can also look at the ad library as a way of checking who potentially are being targeted by the ad. No, it won't tell you who the ad is targeting, but it will tell you who might have seen it. Like, for example, this Malasakit Center ad, if you click details, you can see how much was spent, who was targeted. I always found this interesting na this Malasakit Center has, in a way, 2 kinds of audiences. No? You have the younger audience of men, yun yung blue, and then an older audience of women. No? So the 55 to 64, mga babae. No? While the 25 to 35, mga lalaki. I don't know why that is. Let's go look at something else. No, let's look at itong. So you remember that, and if you have a look at another ad, it's a different demographic naman. Ito medyo mas men ang tina-target. No, although women across the spectrum, and then you can also look at the areas where the ad was shown. So how does this help? Well, it helps in a way look at especially if it's a political page or a page related to politics. One thing that Facebook really empowers is the creation of echo chambers. No? So if you are not being targeted by this ad, you won't see it. It will only appear in the feed of people they want to target. And that's part of the design, no? of how Facebook ads works. You want to micro target and boost and promote different messages depending on the audience. But on the flip side, and I'm not saying Bongo is spreading disinformation, but if let's say you were spreading disinformation, you can use that towards spreading disinformation, because now you can segment the type of disinformation you're spreading. And then in one piece of research we're doing is we're now tracking not just Facebook pages, but also posts that are shared in Facebook groups. So groups actually is a way of grouping people together of common interests. And there you already have a captive audience. So there are groups that are, for example, looking at conspiracy theories, anti-vax, anti-mask, COVID is a bioweapon kind of misinformation, and just studying the way this this system works for me is important if you're going to get into serious work doing fact checking and investigations. Okay, so that's Facebook ad library. Okay, TweetDeck. I think this is kind of an older tool, but it's still useful. Let me just pull up my TweetDeck. Where is it? Maybe I'll open another one. So the history of TweetDeck is it started out as a separate application, and then Twitter found it so nice that they bought it, no? Or they acquired it. So now TweetDeck is seamlessly integrated into Twitter. And what it does is it allows you to monitor many, many, many social media accounts, lists, mentions simultaneously. Okay. So, for example, I have my own Twitter account, but I also have a company Twitter account. And Data Ethics is another Twitter account. So this allows me to kind of monitor them simultaneously. At the same time, any mentions of me or my company come here. Now, ang maganda rin dito is you can set up searches, no? So for example, Duterte meltdown. I think that's current events, no? So it will create a list of everything that has Duterte meltdown here, no? And it's good for monitoring, no? What's another one that was particularly nasaan ng Pangulo? Yan, ang Pangulo. And I'm just using this for example. I'm not a big fan of the hashtags myself, no? But the good thing is here is if you're tracking a particular, and it doesn't have to be a hashtag. So you remember there was this series of troll posts, no, that came in the middle of the flooding. Yung taga Cagayan po ako. Remember that? There's another one na taga Isabela po ako. Let's try that too. Yan. Okay. So now you have this free-flowing, I would say, feed, no? Ayan, no? Yung meltdown, tsaka yung nasa ng Pangulo continue to create more posts, no? In a way, it's a good way of watching the trend, no, as it unfolds. So media agencies, journalists, they use TweetDeck and similar tools, no, to watch the feed. And it's interesting when you're on a TweetDeck and suddenly one topic floods all of the feeds. Kasi you can also monitor, for example, mga mga media sites. Like here, I'm watching GMA, Manila Times, Business World, CNN, and so on and so forth, no? So it can get overwhelming, but if you're really serious about, digital and social media surveillance, it's really a good tool just to see what people are talking about. And it's interesting, no? Kung iba-iba yung nila, yung mga themes nila, no? When you put all of the media companies side by side, no? So CNN is talking about Panelo apologizing to Robredo. Business World is retweeting some stuff. GMA is talking about PNP chief D. Bolsinas, and Manila Times is talking about massages. So you know what's populating the tweets of various agencies. So this is like high level surveillance, no? And you can add as many columns as you want, and you can also set up alerts, no? As a certain term appears, no? Okay, so that's one. Another approach, so this is like for high level surveillance, is extracting the data, itself, no? And there are many paid tools for this, but there's actually one tool that's free that you can use immediately called socialsearcher.com. So let me do that. Ito ba yun? Nope. Yeah, okay. Social Searcher, social-searcher.com, is a social listening tool. No? And there are other tools that are more complex, no, but I like this because it's very easy. No? So for example, I say Duterte meltdown. It will start searching for any mention of this. No? It's not as the free version is not as comprehensive as other tools, but it gives you a high level kind of view then, no? Similar to TweetDeck. And this thing also includes other social media platforms, no, like Flickr, Reddit, occasionally Facebook. Like this one is Facebook, for example, which is rare. No, Facebook kasi blocks a lot of social listening tools. Pero at least it gives you a good view of what's happening, particularly related to that search term. But for me, the best use of this is if you click more, you can export the data into a spreadsheet. No, uh, I did that earlier, so I'm going to show you what that looks like. No, so ganyan, no, gives you a list of what was the network, the usernames, the URLs. And I think this is where it can really get interesting, because if you track a certain, let's say, hashtag over time, like keep searching for it like once a day, and you start compiling all of this, some interesting patterns come out. No? The first thing you can do, for example, is let's talk about analyzing the content, no, that comes out here. And of course, you can try reading each one of this kind of these posts. But I found that one easy way of analyzing the content is to use a word cloud generator. And there's a lot of that online. So if you go to this guy, no, jasondavis.com word cloud. No? Jason Davis is a developer, and he was kind enough to post a free utility. No? And there are also paid versions of this, but I thought the free one would be good enough. No? And then you just copy all the text, no, that appears in social searcher, and then you paste it here, click go, and then instantly you'll see a word cloud of what kind of the more common terms happening in this particular piece. No? Let's search another one. No, Duterte meltdown. What about nasaan ang pangulo? Okay. And then i-extract din natin. And then you can now compare two different trends, no? If they're all saying the same things or different. Lalo na, the reason I'm using these two is they're quite recent. So I'm going to export this. Yeah, you can save it, no? Meron na pala akong version na to. So let me dig it up. So ito, nasa ng Pangulo, no? There we go. So this is longer, no? So I got 100 plus kanina. This is about 190. So I'm going to create another word cloud related to this. Copy that. Wait. Yan. Okay, paste it here. Yan. Yan. Okay. And then you can put them side by side, no? See how they compare with each other. Okay, how do you read the word cloud? Apart from, it's a nice graphic. You can use it as a wallpaper. But in general, the bigger the word or the phrase, the more common they appear, no, in the corpus, no. So here, this is what naasar ang pangulo. This is meltdown. This one is nasaan ang pangulo. No, some common words are there: president, o biglang may SAF doon, Manila Public. Looks like Mentimeter. Yeah, Mentimeter is a paid, tool. So if you have access to Mentimeter, you can do something like this. But if you're on a budget, or if you have no budget, then you can use this. For me, it's very, very useful in a way detecting whether a particular hashtag is organic or being engineered. How do you know that? If most of the words are kind of small. That means there's a big variation, no, in the content of the posts. So it's probably more organic, and you can probably, look at maybe a ratio of this, no, if you looking at the raw data of how varied the words are. But if most of the words are big and blocky, that means most of the posts contain the exact same words. And there's a very high chance na pag ganon, it's being engineered. So, Duterte meltdown and nasaan ang Pangulo? It's actually, I would probably guess, of course you can do some more parang detailed statistics. Nasaan ang Pangulo seems to either retweeting the same thing again and again and again or sharing it. As opposed to Duterte meltdown, which is dami yung mga malilit na words, seems to be more organic. Now, porke ba it's big and blocky, it's a bad thing? Well, no, of course not. It can be a campaign. But since these are both politically charged, hashtags, it's also a good, way to check if there's probably a troll army behind it. And troll armies exist on both sides. It's not just DDS, no? The Dilaws also use it, and so many other people. So the point here is to be very objective, no, at the trends that you see, and then understand how it's affecting, kind of discourse, no. Lalo na if there's a political agenda behind it. And everything you see online nowadays, it's a good bet that it's political. No? I think one thing that we should let go of is this whole idea that if you want to stay in social media, you cannot avoid being political. I guess the question is what do you do with your political beliefs? No? Do you attack other people with it? Do you try to silence the discourse? Do you try to spread disinformation, or the other way around? No? Do you encourage more openness? Do you try to understand the opposing views and try to come up with a more kind of measured outcome? No? It's hard, no? A lot of people, even the media, get it wrong. Like, for example, this morning, I don't know if you saw this. See our good friend Joseph Morong, no, from GMA. He just got attacked. Why? Because he's part of the Malacanang press corps, no? Among other journalists, and he was covering the talk of Duterte last night. And obviously the big issue was Duterte was blaming Robredo for spreading the nasaan ang Pangulo or natutulog ba ang Pangulo hashtag, which is completely false. No? It was someone else was doing it. And from the looks of this data, it was actually an organized strategy. No? But then the other, some people were calling out Joseph Morong for just reporting it as is without fact checking it. So that's actually a tricky subject, no, for journalists. How do you draw the line between reportage and editorials? No? Another topic for another time. Okay, so word clouds. I hope you found that interesting. So now that we're already at this point where you have a lot of raw data, this is where we can start to think about networks, because all of the data here can also be used to create networks. So let's talk about networks muna. What is a network? So ito yung mga word clouds, no? Okay, so the concept of networks actually came from math. So if there are some mathematicians here, you would know this. See Leonard Euler, or Euler, or Euler. There was a famous problem in math called the bridges of Königsberg, and the problem was to devise a walk through the city that would cross each of the bridges once. No? So the city of Königsberg had these, I think 7 bridges, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No? And the question was, can you devise one walk where you cross each bridge only once? And see Euler said it was impossible. And to prove it, he invented what we call graph theory. So what's graph theory? Graph theory is basically the mathematics of networks. And we won't get too deep into the math, but the point here is to understand what a network is. No? So the way Euler did it was the roots, he said the roots inside the land masses are irrelevant. What matters are the connections. No? And then he translated that into this abstraction. No? So a network is basically this. No? It's a collection of two things. No? You have nodes, ito yung mga bilog. So these are either the destinations or the sources or the entities. And then you have what we call edges. Edges are what connects them. And constructing a network can be very insightful. No? There's a lot of math that goes into it. What we'll instead look at is just generating a network visualization and understanding how that works. No? So to do that, you need two data sets. You need nodes and edges. So nodes is basically a list of all of the entities that you want to connect. And there's a second list called edges, which is how are each node connected. So I'll save everyone the time and I'll show you an example of what does a node list look like. So this is what a node list look like. So I converted what I got from Social Searcher into a list. No? So these are basically URLs. No? URLs and usernames. No? So I have about 323 of them. And I'll label that with an ID. And then create another data set, which you can do by just copying columns on Excel. And this is what the edges look like naman. No? You have source and target. So this can be who was the user, and the target can be what URL were they sharing. Pwedeng ganon, no? Etc. Or even better, can you convert it into a numbered list? No? So kasi you already have the ID number of each of your nodes. So, and then if you have the edges like this, no, then it's straightforward to convert it into a table that looks like this, no. So you have source and target, source and target, source and target. So each of that represents a connection. Okay. So why do you want to create something like this? So there is another free tool that people who do network analysis use a lot. It's called Gephi. So you can go to gephi.com. Gephi, Gephi.com. And then it's an open source tool. It's free. And it's used to do, but ayaw. Wait, let me look for, search na lang. Gephi. Yan, Gephi.org pala. Nako, ano kayang website yung nalandingan ko? I hope walang malware yon. Yan, okay. Gephi.org. Download it for free. And then it can be quite intimidating at first if you're not used to it. And it's also, the interface is quite dated, no? But show you a demonstration. No? So this is what Gephi looks like. No? So this is one of the sample visualizations available in Gephi. This is the characters from Les Miserables. And what they did here was they created the node, the node list is all the characters. And the edge list is where the characters appear together in a scene. No? Obviously, the most popular character is Jean Valjean and Fantine, Javert, and all these others. No? So how does this look like from a data perspective? If you go to the data laboratory link, yan ang itsura niya. So the nodes are all Jean Valjean, and the edges are basically who appears in what scene together. So each record here is a scene, and the numbers denote the characters in that scene. No? And what the network visualization does is show you which characters are close to each other on a scene. No? I think someone else did this for Star Wars and Game of Thrones, and they were able to predict sino yung mamamatay, no? Sa Game of Thrones, spoiler alert, by determining who were kind of in the outer area of the network. So they deduced that the people who appear together and they're kind of in the middle of the network, they're the more important characters, and they probably will live until the end of the show. No? And the ones who appear kind of in the edges, these are like the minor characters, and they will probably be the first to get killed. Interesting theory. Okay, so let's look at a more a practical example. No? So I'll create a new project. Nope, I don't want to save that. And I'm going to import the data I got from Social Searcher. So I'm just going to import some stuff now. So give me a minute. So first I will import the edges that I found. Sorry, the nodes. So yan. So ito yung mga accounts and URLs. No? Next, finish, append. Always remember this, append to existing workplace. Because otherwise it'll create a new workplace and you won't be able to connect the two. Okay. So I now have my node list. No, ito na yun. And then I'm gonna import my edges. Import spreadsheet, the edge file that I showed earlier. So it looks like this, no? And then it will automatically detect naman in most cases now what it is. But minsan kung magkamali, then you can change it. No? Next, finish, append. Yan, okay. Yan. So we now have our nodes and our edges. And then you can click preview and start, looking at the data muna, no, and see if there's any any pattern that appears. No? So for example, it seems like there's this one node that is connected to many of the nodes. The slider I'm moving around here is the preview. No? Okay. You can show the labels. I can make, this is just the preview, no? Just to give you an idea of what the resulting graph might look like. Okay, so let's say, it's not as clean as we'd like, pero mukhang merong central node somewhere. Then we go to overview. So this is what the graph looks like in the overview. Now, the nice thing about the overview is you can start applying some automated algorithms to create the layout. So usually what I like is to use Force Atlas. Force Atlas is a way, it's a bit complicated to explain, but in a nutshell, each of these layouts create, a certain organization of the network. No, it will force, let's say, a certain gravity or repulsion within the network. But what this does is actually it helps organize the nodes for you so that you can now look at sino yung magkakatabi. No? So usually Force Atlas works, and then itong Rheingold just to split them apart. Yan. Okay. And then let's color it, no? Ranking, nodes. Okay. I just want to show you what this might eventually look like, no? So this is the edges. So we're moving it there. And then let's go here, no? So apparently this isang central node here is a Flickr URL, no, that everyone seems to be sharing, and it's associated with all these other URLs. And then you can you start tweaking, no, what the graph looks like. Like you can change the colors. You can start playing around with the, with all of the settings here to give you a good example. So I'll show you an example of a network that we already created. Well, for one thing, this was one of the fundamental methods that we use to create troglodyte. So why don't I show you that? No? So well, anyway, I'll let it load muna. It's taking some time to load. No? I'll show you a simpler network first. Okay. So this is created from basically retweets of a particular topic. No? So what I did was we searched for the term human rights given a certain period, and then looked at who was sharing the term human rights. No? And this is what came out. And we tried to understand bakit sino-sino itong mga to, no? Why are they here? No? And what this turned out pala was this was capturing all of the activity during the Hong Kong protests. No? So you had this big network called Democracy for Hong Kong, and connected to another network, itong si Hild Votman, who I think is a journalist, etc. So just looking at who was retweeting who is a good network. Another example of a network, this one can get pretty hairy. No? Give me just a second. Is looking at the appearance of certain terms, no? So ito medyo mas maliit ng konti, but so you can create network out of words, no? Which words appear together. Let's let that load, medyo matagal. Tagal pa ng troglodyte. Why don't I just show you the slide deck that we showed in the final, no? So this was, remember the Whois tools? So we did a reverse lookup of mga fake news sites and joined them together using their Google Analytics and Google AdSense IDs and their IP addresses, and then constructed the network. So this was the solution that won us the hackathon. And the idea we had was, what so as you can see, all the maneuvering I did on Gephi can get quite complicated. Why don't we create a tool where people just enter entries into it, then the reverse lookup happens automatically in the background, and after maybe a couple of minutes to an hour, the network is visualized. And the target user was the basically fact checkers and researchers, because they're under tremendous pressure and time pressure to come up with solutions. And the idea was, they don't have, maybe they don't have the time, no, to start mucking around with tools, although it's obviously a good thing if they know how. So why not we just create an automated tool for them, no? So that's an example of a network being built, no? I'll show you another one. This one was more recent. We tried to track two hashtags, Sana and Sona 2020. This was around the time of the State of the Nation ni Duterte earlier this year. And again, ganyan, no? The Sana word cloud, parang kanina, there's a lot of big blocky words, but also a lot of smaller words, no? While in the Sona 2020, there's practically no small words, puro big blocky words. So between these two, clearly the Sona data is more templated, copy paste, or they're using the same text. That was interesting. And then when we look at the network, yung Sana network seemed a bit sparse, kukonti lang yung nakakonect, while the Sona network had a lot, no? We had major mga political accounts, si Sara Elago and some senators spreading the same messages, and then you had these other accounts around them, no? You can also build a network of hashtags, for example. Like this was the Sana hashtag network. May Sona all, no to Chacha. So it's very sparse. While si Sona 2020 had a lot of mga kapatid, no? This means these hashtags appear together. And this also gives you an idea of whoever is running Sona 2020, if there is someone, they're trying to ride on other trends as well, no? And that can be a good peg then to understand if there's some nefarious activity going on. So what I do nowadays is every time there's a major trend on social media, I try to pop it into Gephi agad, no, to see what's happening there. And actually, we've compiled a lot of examples of this already. Like at the time of the ABS-CBN shutdown, we were tracking who was saying no, who was saying yes. Kasi dalawang hashtag yun, eh. No to ABS-CBN and yes to ABS-CBN. So maybe one of these days we'll do an exhibit, no, to show it. It's obviously politically charged, so we're being very careful about that. But the bottom line here is all this data is already out there, no? By the way, if some of you are more, I would say, data science inclined, there's a repository. I'll show you that repository now. Based that gives you kind of a high level view of what we did in the Break the Fake hackathon. No? So go to github.com/docligot, that's me. And the name of the repository is Conspiracy Detection R. No? So this is what the repo looks like. It's got a few parang step-by-step tools. We need to go to Q&A na. No? Don't worry, this is the last one. What we did in the hackathon, the network. And then what I like here is there's an example of what we call community detection. So if you don't have time to eyeball the network, there's an algorithm that allows you to label the nodes immediately. Na okay, these 3 nodes, they belong to community 1, and that's a way of identifying possible conspirators. No? So just have a look at that, and if you like it, give it a star. No? Okay, so ano pa ba? Gephi, this, that, the network. Yeah, no, if you have any questions, you can send me an email at info@ethics.ph. You can visit our website at ethics.ph. We're also quite active on Facebook, Facebook/ethics.ph. We have an ongoing hackathon called the BARM Data Challenge. If you want to participate using data to solve the social problems of the Bangsamoro region. Okay, so with that, thank you very much. I hope you found that interesting. I know it was quite a lot to take in, and then we'll make the materials available, no, through the Media Civics Lab. So thanks, and
Some
Q&A na tayo.
Yes, thank you, Doc. So, just a quick change sa host natin kasi nagka-brown out si Jara, so I have to take over. Ito yung mga challenges natin sa time of pandemic, ano? So that was a very heavy na talk kasi too much to take in, no? Apparently with a lot of the tools, with a lot of the data. Sabi nga ni Rahim, information overload daw. Ngayon, I would like to open the floor for Q&A. So, guys, if you have questions to Doc Ligot, I've known Doc for, I think, a year now. We met last year when they joined the Break the Fake hackathon, and which they eventually won as well. So that was awesome. The Philippine team won the international hackathon. And okay, guys, yes, we have to ask question. I have a question for Doc actually. While waiting for the other people, no, to raise their questions. So, Doc, ang question ko naman sa'yo is, how do we make sense out of this data, right? Because it's so easy to get consumed by, network analysis, by who's behind who. But the thing that we barely ask is, so what, right? Like, what's the thing? What's the after thing about this data? So what kind of efforts or where else can we actually use this data the moment we find them out? Like, do we hand them over to NBI, or do they serve as a back end to some bigger media literacy efforts? Can you shed some light on the so what level of the data?
Sige, so I guess the question is, what's your objective? No? The idea that, like, most of the context that we use these tools is really to look for organized behavior. No? Like Facebook has a term called coordinated inauthentic behavior, and that's, for example, looking at trolls, looking at fake accounts. That's only one type of organized behavior. Another type of organized behavior is campaigns. So mga media agencies are running campaigns, political campaigns, or even not legit media agencies. No, baka mga disinformation agents are trying to do that. So anytime there's an organized attempt, that's why when we created Troglodyte, we called it a conspiracy detector. Because conspiracy by definition is two or more agents, no, colluding towards a goal. That's where we use a lot of these tools, no? So that's one half yung network. And then yung mga tools like reverse image search, yung mga whois, this is naman ways of identifying inauthentic content, no? That's where the word clouds come in, looking at, is this something abnormal or normal? And again, what's the higher level goal? If the higher level goal is looking at this information, then this process helps you identify what might be examples of disinformation and who might be behind them. There could be other reasons you want to do this. You want to do some what they call digital surveillance. You want to monitor a particular group. You want to talk about a particular, looking at a particular set of personalities, if they're actually, attacking someone, ganging up on each other. The bottom line here is there's just so much data available online, no? Websites and social media, that you really need specialized tools already to start filtering it. Yeah, but it goes back to the original question. What are you after? And as I said earlier, you can also use this for bad reasons, no? To propagate fake news. And you can bet that the people behind the fake news are aware of these tools also, no? Kasi nga, takes one to know one. So yun ang problem, no? You want to also, in a way, even the odds. Because nga the bad guys have funding, they're well supported, while the people doing the fact check, they're usually underappreciated, underfunded, And then now they're getting red tagged apparently. So that's the reality.
Yes. Okay. I remember a talk last night, and I think there was a quotable quote in there as well that he was talking about um, efforts to fight fake news is also a propaganda. So it takes one to know one, actually. I'd like to have this question from Janine. Can you unmute yourself, Janine, to ask Doc?
Hello, good evening. Yes. So my question is, if you want to check something, a specific content, do you have a suggested way or pattern on how are we going to treat it? Kasi ang dami pong tools na magaganda na share tonight. But how do we make sense of it connected dun sa question ni Gab? And part of that is, ano yung mga parang step-by-step tool to come up with that? Yan. Salamat.
Yeah. So, well, there's no short answer to it. I think at the yung level one nito is, let's say you're going to set up a, let's say, a surveillance operation. No? That sounds so negative, pero you want to start tracking all the fake news. Step number one is really you need to start listening over a long period of time. Hindi lang siya one shot and you grab it. No? It's like, for example, what we do every time there's a major trend, we search for it agad, we extract it agad, and we do it every day. No, because there might be some days where a trend exists, and then some days where the trend is only there for 48 hours. So you want to be able to track examples of it. And then let's say you have many of these spreadsheets. The first thing you can immediately do is to check, is it the same people behind various hashtags, various messages? That's how your networks can help you na ngayon, no? Is it the same people? Is it different people? Is the audience seems to be the same or different? Because once you start finding common trends, then that's a clue already na ano nangyayari. Parang is there someone deliberately attempting to manipulate the kind of the common perception or the sentiment. So finding out who is important. Second is, since you now have many examples of the content, you can now look at the actual content itself. No, simple things like count the number of words on average that each post has. No, is it getting longer? Is it getting shorter? Are certain terms appearing more often? Are certain hashtags appearing more often? Parang yung kanina, no, there was this sauna network and ang dami niya mga child hashtags. That gives you an idea na, hey, look, this doesn't look like a normal behavior. You know, there is a deliberate attempt to connect the trends together. And again, you can look at it two ways, no? Depending on where you sit. No? So for me, I adopt a very clinical approach first. Like when you see a hashtag nasaan ang Pangulo, on the surface, it looks like people who are basically fed up, no? Sick and tired of the complacency of the government. But then when you look at the content analysis, it looks like it's a template na nasaan Pangulo. So there is actually an attempt, high probability, no? I can't say it for sure yet, no? That there's an organized attempt to maybe discredit the government. So how do you feel about that? No? Depends on where you sit in the spectrum. But if you're going to be a data, analyst, you have to adopt a very cold, clinical approach muna. Tingnan mo muna. Because if you ask me, I will not condone coordinated inauthentic behavior even if it's against the government. Diba? Parang you can't have a double standard when it comes to these things. If you're spreading misinformation, that's bad, full stop. No, I'm not going to tolerate that for me. No, but it depends on some other people. And if you ask them, so you have the who's doing it, you have the content, and then third is then you look at the context. I think that's where it's very important because how do you know if it's really disinformation? Really, there's no algorithm to definitely detect it for sure. You need to apply some kind of context and nuance. No? Is the post attempting to smear someone? And it doesn't matter who. You can be attempting to smear Panelo. That's still a smear campaign. No? Why? No? And never mind maybe there's a just as big or even bigger attempt to smear Robredo. Both are wrong. then both should be checked. No, both should be investigated. On the other hand, there's also what we call, you don't want to be censoring people online. So there's also, if there's an attempt also to discredit and kind of silence a certain voice, that's also suspicious. Why? Is there a cover up going on, or is there an attempt? Like, here's a theory that we're still looking to prove. Na every time, ito naman, but the other way around naman, every time there's a concerted effort to kind of complain about the government, suddenly magically another trend appears, no, and steals the spotlight, no, or some influencer, like there's this jam mag, no, that suddenly appeared out of nowhere, don't know who she is, don't really care, but suddenly she's there, getting all the views, getting all the impressions. So you gotta wonder, no, na was Jam Magno engineered to take the steam off? Because everyone started attacking her, no. Poor, I don't know. I hope she's getting paid for it, no, to be becoming the target of all these attacks, no. But then you think, no, try to think 2 or 3 steps ahead. Why did the Jam Magno suddenly appear in the middle of all the calamities, no? Clearly, the feeds are being manipulated. No? Your feed is being manipulated. Your echo chamber is being manipulated. So yeah, so seeing all this data can be overwhelming, but in a way, at least for me, it gives me like so many more perspectives. So hopefully, hindi ka na uto-uto with whatever you see online. Like, I've accidentally shared wrong data or wrong information. Like a common mistake is there's this old news na suddenly nag-trend, pero actually 2014 pa yan, or some other thing. Like, for example, Project Noah trended. That's 2017 news, for example. But somebody tried to make an issue about why was it defunded, etc. So I felt strongly about that. Kasi, nga naman, why did you defund Project Noah? And then only to find out later, no, it's actually still in UP, in albeit a smaller scale, and the rest has been absorbed by Pag-asa. So imagine if you were taken up by the emotions of it and you start resharing and retweeting about how irresponsible it was to defund a project like Noah. Then you're now part of the disinformation, no? Because there's actually something else behind it. So hopefully if there's one thing you get from this is learn, well, 2 things. Now, learn not to trust what you see at face value, and also learn to dig deeper. Okay, and that's what the tools are for. It helps you dig deeper. And most people will not go through the effort. Number 1, they don't appreciate it. And number 2, it's more psychologically satisfying to just be part of the bandwagon. So it's going to be a hard path then for you to adopt a contrarian view na tama ba to? Parang mali. And then you check the data. Mukhang mali. And then now that you have the info, what do you do with it? Do you share it? Or do you report it? Like yung tanong kanina, you go to the NBI? For me, probably not. Unless you're working for the NBI, or you were hired by it. There will be a good time and place to reveal all of that information in the proper forums. Like kami, ni Nas, we're sitting on a lot of crap dating back to 2018. But we're very careful not to just share it all over the place because, number 1, we could get targeted. And number 2, that information could also harm people. So, anyway, some high-level guidelines.
Yes, Doc. So medyo compressed na, press na tayo ng time, no? Let's entertain one more question tapos mag-wrap up na tayo. Paolo, can you raise your question to Doc?
Hello, good evening.
Hi, Paolo.
It's just a very curious question. I mean, the apps are really wonderful. But I am just thinking, kasi kanina po, yung pinakita mo yung spreadsheet, nakita ko na nandoon pala talaga yung mga usernames, the accounts. Does these apps violate our cyber privacy? I mean, can it be used for Kasi you said nga po a while ago that with great power comes great responsibility. So I am just curious how these things can be manipulated.
Well, that's a very good point because the moment you make a disclosure, you might be violating someone's privacy already. It's okay if you disclose na, ayan, si Gab Billones tweeted this kasi that's public knowledge. But if you start connecting the dots and make a claim na, well, Gab Billones was behind nasaan ang Pangulo and also behind Duterte meltdown and also behind, no to ABS-CBN shutdown. So you're now implying a conspiracy. Even if you can prove it using the data, you're now making a claim. And that claim, can be, well, it can be construed as, number one, there's this law that has been twisted around, no, which is cyber libel. That's we be very careful about that. And second, even the data that you see in front of you can be wrong. No? It could completely be random lang, nakataon lang na you shared this, you shared that, nadala ka lang. So actually, it's a double-edged question. Eh. Number one, don't fall into that trap as a user. No, don't share anything lang blindly, or you could be tagged as a conspirator because now you know how people are doing it. And on the other hand, if you're the one doing the detection, you now need to be careful about the disclosure. That's when you need to start consulting the right parties. No? Like, for example, if you work in media or in as a journalist, even they have specific rules on whether to put out a news article. It has to be corroborated by another source, etc. So, wag ka lang basta-bastang nag-share, no? And maraming mga ganyan. In fact, one early podcast we did this year was we started calling out data analysts and data scientists who were putting out forecasts related to COVID, even though they were not necessarily epidemiologists or qualified to do that. Kasi nga, ang sarap gawin sa mga tools. No? Excel is your friend or your enemy, depending on how you look at it. So yeah, no, that's the kind of the long-winded answer. Yes, no, when you start connecting the dots, it can be not just a violation of privacy, it's a violation of cyber. It's a cyber crime. No, you're making an unsubstantiated claim. And remember how the law works. In the law, even if may Excel spreadsheet ka, that does not necessarily count as substantive evidence. No, you need an expert to corroborate it, no, or an eyewitness. So pag naglabas ka lang ng mga Excel dyan, that's just circumstantial, no? And you've now violated libel. No? It's murky, no? So be careful about that, no? But that should not stop you from tracking it, and monitoring it. And then when the proper forum comes, you release your findings, and then you have someone else check it, peer review, fact checking, importante yon. And if now dalawa na kayong claiming na, okay, independently we replicated the exact same experiment, it came out the same, then now you have maybe some basis to put out a finding. And remember the politics, everything here is political, so be careful about that. Even if you don't believe the politics, you will be branded as political, and some people never recover from that, no? Like yung mga, of course, the notorious people. Let's say they have a change of heart. Tingin mo may maniniwala pa pag nag-iba yung linya nina Mocha, nina Sasot. I'm just using them as an example. Parang hirap na isipin. No? There was one popular influencer claimed na someone took over her account kuno-kuno. Kasi dati she was being anti-government, and then to find out na she she flipped around and said, no, someone hacked my account, someone has been using it. So wala na, you've just invalidated your identity or your veracity online. So be careful, no? Kasi once you cross that threshold, parang hirap bumalik. You might have to go anonymous muna for a long time.
Okay. Thanks, Doc. Sa ang dami naming natutunan. I'm pretty sure our participants also learned a lot. So, Doc, ano yung way for them to reach you kung meron pa silang mga tanong?
Yeah, well, I'm on Twitter, obviously, Doc Ligot on Twitter. You can also, please reach out to us through our Facebook account, Facebook.com/ethics.ph. And sa ethics.ph nyo na ipasok kasi Cyrolytics normally is more mas formal. Ethics is about looking at all of these issues. So either Twitter, and then you can also reach us on info@ethics.ph as our email. And if you find examples of stupid things, feel free to send it to us, no? Because see, Naz, if he's still in the audience, we're both part of a wider network of people who look at this information, and it spans the globe, so hindi lang Philippines. Philippines is actually a good laboratory for it kasi parang tayo yung template bago ginagamit sa US, for example, or sa Russia. So we should be parang disasters lang yan. We keep getting hit by disasters. We should be the experts at disasters. So parang sa disinformation, there's so much fake news here. We should be the experts at fighting fake news, no? But it'll take time for us to do that.
Yes. Okay, thank you so much, Doc. Follow Data Ethics PH in all of their platforms, guys. I think And I believe that they will actually hold the standard, bear the standard for ethical handling of data in the Philippines.
Yep.
No, so I hope that marami kayong natutunan for our learning session for tonight. Let's give our virtual clap for Doc Ligot, winner of Break the Fake Hackathon, winner of NASA Space Apps Challenge, and founder of Data Ethics PH. Okay, guys, don't forget to leave your feedback in the evaluation form, lecture feedback form. I already sent it in the official messenger chat. And please be on time for tomorrow's class. Our class for tomorrow is going to be about framing. Okay, framing is about how do different media stakeholders and different entities in the context of fake news are actually coming into play and together how they affect each other. So the instructor for tomorrow is Sharmila Parmanan. Sharmila is one of the world's best debaters. She is currently studying her doctorate in University of Cambridge, and she will shed into light some of the biggest questions that we have about relationships between different media entities and fake news stakeholders. So see you tomorrow, and enjoy the rest of the evening.
Thanks, everyone. Hope you learned something. Stay away from fake news. Masama yan.
Doc, can you stay in the breakout room?
Sige.
Okay.
Or you wanna move me there?
Yeah, Cedric will.
Yung pala si Mike. Mike and Naz. Hi, Naz.